So I realized I scheduled this for later tonight, and I'm going live an hour early because of daylight savings. So technically, this is 8:30 p.m. And I'm just right when I hit go live, I noticed the time. So we're just going to go for it. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining tonight. We are diving into what is actually going to become, I guess you could say, a mini series. We're diving into the question of unconditional love and what is that? This is a hard topic, especially, it's funny. I think this is exactly what I should be talking about because I actually am experiencing a hard relational challenge with someone close to me right now in my life. And so it's very appropriate. During yesterday morning's vertical alignment, I felt prompted to talk about this tonight. And no surprise, because ended up having a relational challenge this morning. And it was just, I saw the topic for today and I was like, oh, I'm like, this is exactly what I need. And I love how that happens, yesterday morning. So for those of you who don't know, vertical alignment is the principle of it. It's really about bringing all the parts of us, our behaviors, our beliefs, mindsets, different narratives that we hold about ourselves and the world, bringing every part of us, our actions, inner and external, you and me, into alignment under the hierarchy of who do we want to be, but ultimately, who does God say that we are? On Sundays, we do talk more so about spiritual intelligence. On the Knowing Show, we cover every single intelligence, the emotional, intellectual, physical intelligence, and Sundays are really dedicated to the spiritual. And, with this conversation, really having God at the hierarchy of, okay, who do you say that I am? We bring all of that into submission. So that's the principle of vertical alignment. The practice of it is really, is frankly, me taking time every single day, particularly in the mornings, but it's also a daily practice throughout the day of really taking time to meditate, be in prayer, read, journal, really allow for each intelligence to come online, get activated, and then come into submission. In that process of vertical alignment, in the practice itself, it really frees me from the day before to ensure that I'm not taking the past with me into the present. And, sometimes it's like, wow, I've got a lot to resolve. Or, man, I'm really emotionally, physically, mentally exhausted. I need to recharge or restore what's inside. So this practice of vertical alignment can look many different ways. Yesterday morning in particular, in my practice of vertical alignment, I just really felt strongly like God was teaching me things about love in a way that sometimes I get surprised what I'm being taught. And yesterday morning was about love. And one of the things that really struck me yesterday about love in particular was that love is not attached to outcomes. And I want to dive into that concept tonight. And we're going to be talking about this over the next couple of days, just about love and really exploring it, because there's so much for us to uncover here. And particularly what came to mind tonight as I was considering the topic for this show, it was around the greatest example of love that I know is through and in the life of Jesus, as documented and recorded in the Bible. And so I will look often to how he lived as an example for me of how I want to live. And, a friend of mine doesn't believe that he literally lived. And so he'll just, look at Jesus's life as an example, whether it's, for allegory or literacy. But I love it, regardless of the stance you take in that regard. There's so much to glean. There's so much to glean. So looking at the life of Jesus, there were a few examples that really stood out to me in order for love to be unconditional, in order for love to sustain, regardless of what happens, because love, at the end of the day, it's how God views and loves us. And what's wild is that some of us might actually shake our fists at God and hate God, and his love for us sustains. So I'm talking about that kind of love that's unconditional. And I've got a couple of examples that came to mind in preparing for tonight, particularly from the life of Jesus, but also one other example. Jesus did a really, really brilliant job It says he did not entrust himself to people, particularly the Pharisees, the religious people. Of all people that Jesus was not willing to entrust himself with, he was not willing to entrust himself to the most religious of the time because he saw their hearts. He knew what they were thinking, and he knew what was inside of them was evil, and they did not have pure intent. Yet he loved them. So love unconditionally does not mean entrusting ourselves to every person that comes our way. That's a really, really important distinction, that if we are to love without regard to conditions and love fully and love freely, it does not mean we are entrusting ourselves to people, especially people that we know have evil intent or have desire to harm us or have harmed us in the past. And so this is where boundaries come into play. And boundaries are for the purpose and protection of that person, but at the end of the day, ourselves. It's protecting us from what that person might actually try to do to us. Like Jesus literally had boundaries with the Pharisees. The way he engaged with them and answered them, if you kind of examine his dynamic with the religious people versus his dynamic with folks who were really just like either ordinary, nobody fancy, of no title, of no quote unquote regard, or people that frankly actually had the title of, in the time and in the day, sinner. Like people were like, oh my gosh, for example, they hated the tax collectors because they were like betraying of their people. And then they also didn't like prostitutes and didn't like adulterers and didn't like, they didn't like all these different types of people. And so they were effectively ostracized by their own community. And yet Jesus would talk to them and give them the time of day and engage with them in a way that he didn't with some of the most elite in their time and in their people group. And I think that that's so beautiful, is that he looked past the external facade, saw the heart, and then from there made the decision on how to engage. And y'all, this is where it is so important. We've been talking a lot about listening to God and actually being aware and confident of who we are in terms of who he says that we are, whose we are, knowing our identity in that regard. When we know and we've got access to who God says that we are, and we're kind of like, okay, God, talk to me, teach me, who am I? Once we've done that, now we can say, okay, God, teach me and talk to me, who are they? And in that process, we actually get to unveil and uncover identity of other people and hold up a mirror and say, hey, look, you're this awesome. Isn't that cool? But we also get to get insight into, oh, that person actually has bad intent towards me. And then we get to make wise decisions as a result of that. So Jesus, if we're looking at his life as an example, he did such a great, brilliant job of doing that. And one of the key practices that he did actually mirrors this concept in this practice of vertical alignment. It says every morning he would pull aside in quiet in the early morning alone to be with his Father. And that type of communion, that type of direct access to God allowed for him to know what to do, how to spend his time, and how to engage with people. It gave him insight into their hearts, into what was going on beneath the surface, so that, yes, he could love them unconditionally, but he could act accordingly. So his mode of being, this is really at the root of unconditional love, is a mode of being towards people that is rooted and grounded in love. The external action, the doing, so being is love and doing is tailored to the person, the place, the time, the data, effectively, of the past as well. So we want to love intelligently. We talk on the show about human intelligence. We have intelligence from our spirit, from our emotions, from our intellect, from our physical body. We actually, the physical intelligence is a fun one when it comes to engaging with people, because you can totally sense somebody's energy when they're coming up to you sometimes. And when I say energy, I mean literally physical energy. They come bounding up to you. Hi, my name's Christine. I'm so excited to meet you. And you're like, and you can see it in their eyes. They're genuine. Sweet. That's okay. I'm going to engage with you differently than somebody who comes up, seems a little bit shifty, maybe kind of checking you out with judgment. And it's like, hey, I'm Christine. And you're like, oh, I don't trust you. You seem a little bit shifty. And I actually don't trust that you're for me, that you're for my good and for the best of whatever is the outcome. So unconditional love is not attached to any particular outcome of what that person does. It is constant. It remains. And that is the inner posture. That is the mode of being in relation to a person, to anybody around us, and here's the thing, to ourselves. And so if we don't have that towards ourselves, we cannot have that towards others. And y'all, this is a major work in progress for me. You know, it's really, my MO is to hold myself to a really high standard and actually self-flagellate and judge. And so actually it is a sign for me when I start judging myself harshly. That is like, oh, I need to be careful when I go and engage with other people, because I'm probably going to carry that same judgment. There's this beautiful verse. I just added it. I'm in the final 2 chapters of editing my book, Knowing, right now. So I'm so close to being done. And I'm in the final chapter editing it. And I just added this verse with, you know, talking about God comforting us. And it says, the Father of all comfort comforts us so that we may extend the same comfort that we have received to others. Y'all, it's the same thing. We receive love, it transforms our hearts, and then we give love. But that giving of love in external action may look very different, again, per person, based on whatever the data and intelligence has to offer us. The goal is that we are remaining hooked up at all times to, effectively, our divine tether to the voice and presence of God, so that we're always acting in alignment. When we start acting out of alignment, that's when we should start questioning ourselves. Like, am I actually acting in the integrity of love? Alignment is so critical, because that's our source. That's our connection to God. That's our, okay, let me put in the practice. Let me make sure, you know, talk about the electrical socket. My electrical plug is hooked up to the right source. If we're not taking that time to practice that in the morning, our love is going to be conditional, because it's based now on their performance, not God's heart for them. And so another example of this, so we were talking about how Jesus, there's a verse that says he did not entrust himself to them because he knew their hearts. He knew what was in their hearts. So that's number one. Based on that concept, where it's like Jesus effectively had boundaries, I heard this very profound story. This mother, her son, he was in his 30s, and he had been an addict for about 15 years, and it was just devastating. Like, it was wrecking her world, you know. So much money into rehab, so much money to lend him, you know, because he was, you know, going to lose his apartment, and just made her like financially pretty broke. And also just the emotional pain of watching your child suffer in addiction. So 15 years. I mean, gosh, she's aged visibly, noticeably. She's not well physically as a result of her emotional concern, and her finances, she can't sustain that. So she's like nearly dying herself. So she decides she kind of like as a last ditch effort, she's like, my son is killing me. And so she decides to put up a boundary, and she puts a restraining order on him, which is like, it took her 15 years to get to this point, but finally she was like, this is what I need to do. And her son comes up to the door, knocks on it, and she opens it a little bit. She's like, honey, I cannot let you in. This is killing me. I cannot let you in. Please go away. I can't help you anymore. And he was like beyond devastated, to the point where he actually wouldn't leave the house. She called the police. And he ended up going to jail, and it was that jail time where he finally sobered after 15 years of being an addict. And in that jail cell was the place of his transformation. Y'all, we never know how, when we know the right action to take, even if it feels like countercultural, or it feels counter to what most people would define as the most loving thing, if we know what to do and we do not do it, we are not being a faithful friend. If we're this is where like that divine pathway to God needs to be opened. Like, that channel to the voice of God needs to be opened, so that we can know what to do. Because in these times, in these moments where it just feels impossible, unconditional love is going to physically and in the external manifestation of love unconditional is going to look so different per person, per season. Maybe 10 years before, unconditional love towards her son looked like paying off his rent. But now it looked like a restraining order. And now it looked like calling the police. So we cannot go into our own definitions of love unconditional without maintaining that divine connection, because it is going to get really, really messy and really, really tricky. And especially if we've got so much data on the past data usually does not allow that person to ever change. So if we're allowing for new data to come in, new intelligence effectively, in addition to bearing wisdom from the past, that is like the most difficult, to allow for two opposing truths. I believe this person is changing. I believe that they're growing. And I also know that this has happened before. I'm going to be open to both and just be mindful of both. And so this is where us having that divine access to the voice of God is going to be so important for us to be able to know how to take right action. Love unconditional does not mean love without boundaries. Love unconditionally is the inner posture, the inner position towards each other. I don't know why I'm freezing, but I'm freezing. Love unconditionally is effectively our inner posture towards each other. So with that, I'm going to jump here in the chat. I'm so glad to see you guys. Mark, good evening. Good to see you. Wayne, hello. Nora, Comic Flick, hello. I'm so glad to see you. OPT, hello. Thanks for joining. Callum, hello. Greg. Comics Flick says, isn't a mother's love the most unconditional love? That's a saying I heard. I have heard that. I've actually heard, I've heard actually that there's neurological pathways with the mother. When the baby cries, it causes her like physical pain. I've heard that. I also know that there have been mothers that have really struggled with loving their babies because of many different things. Sometimes it's selfishness. And sometimes it's literally just postpartum depression, where like literally they've got stuff going on and they're like the hormones being kicked off and stimulated in their body that is really preventing them. But I've heard the same thing, that a mother's love is so pure. Siva, hello. Good to see you. Jerome, agape love. Yes, exactly. Jerome, the Sadducees and the Pharisees suck. Dude, it's funny. I think all of us play that part sometimes, you know? Yeah, it's crazy. The most religious ones. Gosh. Vern's not here. Oh, thank you. Thank you for joining. I'm so glad you're here, Verns. Christopher Adams, hello. Ama vola utsis. St. Augustine, statement made to emphasize unconditional love is the care given without expectation of the same in return. The Greeks call this agape, demonstrated John 3:16. Ray, I'm the guy that was living on the edge. Wow. Guy that comments, Jesus probably is the purest form of unconditional love ever. Comic Flick, wow. I need to dig more. So he says, Christine understands the third eye. I need to actually dig into that. I think you're talking about, oh gosh, what's it called? Once I decide to stop caring about trying to find the answer, I will find it. I'll remember. Anyways, I need to learn more about that because I don't really know too much. But thank you. Greg, good evening. Good to see you. Christopher Adams, God says we are wonderfully made in his image. The sad part is people believe we accept the love we think we deserve. We do not deserve it, and yet he gave it anyway. Kyrie Ellison, I love that. My dad says we are here for God to know what's going on. We learn, we live, we love, we anything. Then once we go, we report to God and tell him everything we did. I love the simplicity of that. I fully believe that there was some cosmic decision about where we all ended up in the world geographically, and I don't know how it all works out, but I do believe that we are going to give an account for how we lived. Oh, I love this. Christopher Adams says, the minute we perceive others in the same manner God sees them, that humbles us, for God loves us equally. Wow. I love that. Lamel, thank you. Good to see you. Sandeep, we don't talk like this, but I'm glad you're here. So feel free to engage, just on topic if you don't mind. Guy that comments, trust no man. No comment on that tonight. Maybe we'll comment on that tomorrow. Oh, Callum, smash that like button. Thank you. Oh, Ian, I feel the same. I love seeing your name pop up. Guy that comments, if your maternal figure gives up on you, then it's a wrap. Man, it's really wild. I've heard so many stories. Someone even said this morning, he was like, I was basically raised by my father, and apparently, I didn't know this, but apparently studies show that if a man and his parents separate, but he's raised by his father, he effectively has way more likelihood to avoid prison and drugs and, sex obsessions and all of that. And so I thought that was super interesting on the male side, but I love that about the maternal figure, like whoever that is. I want to talk about that in the next couple of days. Interesting. Y'all, I really, once we start the knowing community here in the next couple of weeks, I really, really want to go through my book with you. I would love your thoughts real time. And I want to do like a book club if you guys are up for it. I want to hear your thoughts. So if you're up for it, let me know. BWD, hello. D5, good evening. Blood sealed, agape, love that. Joanne, I said that very fancy. Joanne, good to see you. Or Joan, wow, I just totally made that up. I feel like I'm getting a little bit dyslexic. I put 2 numbers in reverse yesterday. Man. Jeremy Johnson, good to see you. 𝐤𝐤𝐞𝐫𝐞, good to see you. Casey, hello. I love it. Guy that comments, Guy Daddy loves all his kids. Jason. Jason, I don't know if you're kidding or if you really believe that, but I'd love to know. I'd love to know if you really believe that. He said he was just saying something sad about himself. And I just want to know if you really believe that, because I don't believe it. Just looking through here, and then Tarbot. I do. Pa, thanks for joining. The gray tone. Thanks for joining. I'm glad you're here. 𝐤𝐤𝐞𝐫𝐞. Sorry, maybe he said, so I was sharing a story and he says, so he went to jail and that's the end of the story. Wow, much good. I thought I said he went to jail and like sobered up and got clean. Maybe I didn't say that, but yes, his relationship with his mom was restored. Gotta share the end of the story. Thanks for calling me out. Patrick, good to see you. Hard to please guy, hello. Natsu, I'm going to go ahead and put you on timeout. We just don't talk like that. But thanks for joining and feel free to hang out. The pineal gland. Wayne, thank you. I was trying to think of the pineal gland. Thanks for saving me. Okay, Jason, I'm going to put you on timeout as well. We just don't talk like that here. But I'm so happy you're here and feel free to hang on. Matt, I was essentially the American version of the Pharisee for years. So happy I found true life through Jesus. I love that. Man in the hat, hello. Isaac, thanks for joining. I love it, guys. Alex Allgood, hello. Glad you're here. Patrick, wow. He says, let this chat be your tabernacle. That is like stunning. Wow. I love that. Oh, the gray tone says, she's running 2 chats. Yes, actually, at the end of this month, once we start the knowing community, it's going to be with Christene Marie _knowing, not on the knowing podcast. So we're actually not going to be on the knowing podcast anymore. I don't know how to like send out alerts to our subscribers, but if you want to be part of kind of what we're building over there, feel free to subscribe over there. Rhea, hello. Good to see you. Vulnerability expert, hello. Thank you. Pickle Pants, hello. 2 Ninja Boy. Hello, only if the father broke this cycle, or not only, especially if. Okay, let's go ahead and jump back in. I want to just kind of circle back on this concept that hit me the other day, yesterday morning while I was in my vertical alignment. Love is not attached to outcomes. One of the things that really stands out to me as I was thinking about this concept is, again, examining how Jesus lived as our teacher of how we should live, and the way that he loved people, like a manner of execution, right? So with the Pharisees, he actually kind of held back. He didn't expose himself to them because he knew their hearts. So one manifestation of loving unconditionally, because he loved unconditionally. So one manifestation of that was boundaries. Another manifestation of that was this very thing of not being attached to outcomes. Jesus literally said, I'm going to heal you. Your faith has made you well. Go and sin no more. So he was encouraging folks to turn their life around. Go and change, experience the joy that comes from walking in alignment. But he never followed up. He wasn't like, okay, I'm going to check in with you on Monday. I'm going to check in 2 weeks from now. Are you still having faith? Are you still living as you should? Otherwise, you're going to get sick again. There was none of that. He was so releasing. His love manifested was not checking in and being like a policeman of people. He was so free. They were never yoked to him or a victim of his mercy. And guys, we've seen that. Man, have I done that? I have 100% given people good treatment or given them favors. Honestly, I've done really nice things for people, and they've had very subtle, very subconscious, I didn't even know, but strings attached. And Jesus loved without attachment to the outcome. Who knew what they did? He would say, go and sin no more, but who knows what happened? But I will say that his love, the being of Jesus, was so transformative to be in his presence that I really do believe so many people walked away completely transformed. And we still saw people who encountered him who weren't. So just because people are antagonists of us or against us, it does not mean that we're actually doing anything wrong. It does mean that we should look in the mirror and say, oh, am I out of alignment in any way? But just because we've got haters or people who are gossiping or slandering or being unfair, unjust, it is not an automatic assumption that we're on the wrong track. If actually, when looking at the habits of Christ, leading up to Christmas, I did 5 habits of Christ. Every single day there was a different habit. And one of the habits was Jesus being led by the Spirit. So this is going back to referencing that Jesus would actually spend time every morning with his Father. He would then get the knowledge of the will of the Father so he could go do the will of the Father. And so in order for us to love like God, we actually need to know God. And so in spending time with him on a daily basis, he was then able to embody the love and will of God. And what stood out to me was that said Jesus was led by the Spirit to be tempted by the devil. He was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted. Temptation and getting pushback does not mean that we're automatically on the wrong path. And so I really, really love this. The 2 manifestations of love that we're talking about tonight, one is boundaries and one is not being attached to outcomes. People, when they experience true love, there's no strings attached. It's free. And so if the love we're giving isn't free, then maybe it's not really pure love. Maybe that's the thing. Sometimes it can get mixed in, but it's really important for us to really look in the mirror. If we're frustrated, and I'm doing this work right now. If I'm frustrated by the result of my loving action, was it pure? Or is there something else there? Because every emotion that arises, there is no neutral emotion. It is either life-giving or life-depleting. So usually the negative emotions have something to tell me. There's like a secret to them. When I really I think of it as like holding up the magnifying glass and being Sherlock and being like, okay, let me find the root reason why I'm reacting the way that I am. And in so doing, usually I come to find something that is ultimately going to prevent me from loving both here in the moment, but also in the future as well. Yeah, V Polo says sometimes haters are correct. Exactly. So you've got to look in the mirror. Like don't automatically assume they're wrong. Don't automatically assume they're right. That's where we need to do the investigation, really being explorers of ourselves. Because when we stop exploring ourselves, we stop coming to know ourselves. We are constantly evolving. We're constantly changing. There's always new data to analyze. Okay, just jumping back here in the chat. Villain no super. Hello. Thanks for joining. Side piece chat. I don't know what you mean by that. Mark, hello. He says this is a video. You're right. It is a video. V Polo. I am not married. No. Michael. Hi, Mike. Do you prefer a sunset or sunrise? Well, I prefer Iceland, where you've got like a 2-hour sunrise and the sun like stays up. It only gets as high as 11 a.m., like 11 o'clock in the sky. This is during winter. And then it sets for like 2 or 3 hours. So I love both. That was probably the most epic sunrises and sunsets I've ever seen was in Iceland. But besides that, I don't know. I think I like the sunrise best because it marks the beginning of a new day. Brian J., I'm so glad you're here. Y'all, I would love to hear from you. When you hear unconditional love, how do you feel? Like, what comes up for you in your body? Does it sound scary? Does it sound exciting? Does it sound like safe? Does unconditional love sound safe? Because the real premise of this conversation is that unconditional love is an inner state. It's an inner being towards somebody else that flows into various, very different, but also varied manifestations. So unconditional love is a state of being. Fred asks me a very personal question that doesn't feel very kind, but I will answer it. Fred asks me, how many ex-husbands have you had? Fred, I got married when I was 20, and I was married for 8.5 years. And I had never dated before my husband. He was my high school sweetheart. And I've only had one. He left when I was 28. Michael, thank you. Fred says it's only safe if there's a robber involved. Oh, rubber. I don't think that's like, I don't know what you mean by that, but I feel nervous by your answer. Y'all, the thing that's really interesting here is depending on literally, like if you were to literally close your eyes, and I just want to get very real for a minute, since I just got real answering Fred's question. So I'd love to get real with you guys. What physically comes up for you when you think of that word unconditional love, or I guess those two words? Because a lot of times that's a real indicator for us about there's something blocking us from being able to access that. And usually it starts with, in order for us to actually step into unconditional love, it starts with us being able to receive it. Are we actually receiving unconditional love? And then once we're filled up with that, then we can give it. So if we are not being willing to be vulnerable, honestly, to God and receive the unconditional love that he gives us, much less so unconditional love from a human being, we're not going to be able to give it. This is where that whole pithy saying of, you've got to love yourself first. I don't know so much about that, but what I do know is that if you're not allowing yourself to receive love, there's no way that you're going to be able to give it unconditionally and feel it unconditionally, because there will always be subconscious expectations, subconscious strings attached if we're not ever really allowing ourselves to receive love. If we're always attaching, oh, but, and oh, only that, only because of that reason, if we're attaching conditions to why someone else would love us, then we're not going to be able to receive it, much less give it. Neon Monkey says there are conditions: no cheating, no stealing, no manipulation, etc. I think that's where it's like, okay, let's define terms on love, like a romantic relationship. I completely agree. Having a because I'm so glad you brought that up, because you're absolutely right. Like, there need to be boundaries, and we actually talked about that. One of the manifestations of unconditional love, in terms of like the love that God has for us, Jesus, the example that we're using here tonight, because you have to have an example for all of us to be able to have a discussion. His example actually showed us that he had boundaries. There's a verse that says he did not entrust himself to a particular sect of people. And I think that's super important. I think it's really important for us to have boundaries. And what we're talking about when we say unconditional love, it is literally like that heart posture. It's like looking at the world through God's eyes. How does he see people? So it's not that our actions are, we're not codependent here. And I had to learn that lesson, but it's a heart posture. And then that's also very different from romantic love. We looked at this a couple weeks ago, but there's 7 different types of love in the Greek language. And one of them is philia. That's actually where Philadelphia gets its name, brotherly love. One of them is agape love. Flautus is one. It's really interesting when you really dive into exploring the etymology of love, because it goes so broad. And I'm so grateful for that, because love itself, that word, is so limiting when you actually look at the 7 different manifestations of it. So when I'm talking about the unconditional love, it really is the heart posture, like the heart of God for other people. And even still, Jesus, he had the best heart of love that I've ever seen. He still had boundaries. I'm just looking through the chat here. Looking through. Pride, that is always the one thing holding anyone back. Yeah, man. I wonder, I feel like my concept of pride, ego, is expanding, because I was thinking the other day about how it's like fear or love. Like, you can kind of operate between either one of those places. But I think, is pride always rooted in fear? Like, is there always, when you pull pride back, I mean, like, let's take the onion of pride. When you peel back the layers of pride, what's the core? Is pride in and of itself a core essence, or would fear be at the center of pride? I want to hear your thoughts. When you say, what do I think of when you say unconditional love? I think of my chopper, Patrick says. Are you talking about your chopper in the military? I think you might be, but I'm not sure. Ben, good to see you. Thanks for joining. Kevin, unconditional love is the most true form of love. It is truth, passion, and forever. Nam Rofni. No, he says, are you into astrology? What's your sun, moon, and rising? I have no idea. I know folks are really, really excited by that, and I have no idea. Fred, we can only give what we receive, which most seem to forget. Yeah, so finding one that can give true unconditional love is rare. It's so rare. And I think it has to stem from the source of unconditional love. I think that at the end of the day, that's what it is. Alex, I forget what comes up, the Kundalini Cobra, but it's really about desire or thought energy going up and down the spine. I'm going to write this down. Frankly, I have no idea what you mean, but I'm looking it up. I will look it up. And Christopher Adams, I saw your comment. I actually don't even know what I'm outing myself here. This is a moment to be humble. He says, I'd love to know your thoughts on rumination. I didn't know what that was. A deep or considered thought about something. That's what I thought. So I don't really know how you can have an opinion on rumination other than it's important. I don't know. Am I totally missing your question? I'm sorry. Christopher, I love you so much. And so that's where I'm like, I feel like I need to be able to answer your question well. I definitely want to know your views on rumination. I think I don't know. I just Googled it just to make sure. And I'm totally must be wrong because clearly there's something to have an opinion on and I don't have it. Fred, I'm 28 and women who loves me is, I'm 28 and a woman who loves me is 45. Is this age gap problematic? I'd love to know what you think. You know the context, I don't. I'd love to know what you think. How's it going? Alex, enlightenment. Brian, hello. Patrick Rowe, my Harley Davidson. Oh man, a friend of mine just got a Harley. I really want to get another motorcycle. Wayne, exactly. It has to step from the source. We all have a version of love, whether it's a healthy love or toxic. It's whatever we were taught. Yes. Y'all, it's wild. We really mirror what we see and what we've been exposed to, what's been our experience. And so the thing with vertical alignment is let me go and teach myself a new way of being. Let me make sure that I'm hooked up to the source of true love so that I'm receiving that which is literally from above, from within. The love of God gets to live within us. Like that's the most crazy thing is that he actually gets to live. It's really so incredible. And a lot of churches don't talk about this. A lot of religion doesn't talk about this. Some do, but it doesn't really capture like the beauty and the gloriousness of the fact that God wants to and lives within you and me if we're so willing to allow him to speak to us and love on us and tend to us and care for us. There's this concept of our Father is our good shepherd. You know, we get to be co-creators with God and really say, God, what is your purpose? What do you want? And then we get to help execute on that. Like, it's so cool. And it's coming from this place of, okay, do I even know who I am so that then I can go and know what is the will of God, the purpose of God. And then we get to look and love on other people accordingly. So it's the first thing that we have to get right is this connection, us and God. If that isn't tight, we're not going to be able to do this. Love unconditionally, much less fulfill on our glorious mission. And so when it comes to us restoring that line of connection, that is of the utmost importance. So who do you think God is? How do you feel when you think of God? How do you think God views you? How do you feel about God? I went through a season where I really had to deal with these questions because I was so pissed off at God. And sometimes we have to really lean into that. Looking here in the chat, Ryan, Vids, good to see you. Brian, love always finds a way. I love that. What Wayne says, I don't think souls care about an age. John, Zool, hello Zool, good to see you. Steve, I'm so glad you're here. Alex, God is in everybody. I love that. Kevin, the correct way to pray is to the Father through the Son of Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit. It's funny. I realized I've just been paying attention to this. I read this book, Immortal Diamond by Richard Rohr, who's a Franciscan priest. And I read this, I guess, a year or two ago. Where is it? I need to pull it up and start reading it again. It really changed my perception on God the Father versus Jesus, because we place in the church, I grew up with so much emphasis being on Jesus. Jesus said, I only do what I see my Father doing. He prayed to his Father. He took the attention and directed it upward. And yet all we're doing is giving all the attention and prayer to Jesus. Like, I listen to my mom pray, and I listen to folks that I'm with pray, and it's only to Jesus. And I'm like, man, but God is the Father. And Jesus did what he saw his Father do. And so for us, that's, it's both and. It's really being like Jesus. and activating Christ in us, because Jesus said, I'm not going to leave you alone. And he said, it's better for me to go. And I just think that that's a really, really beautiful thing. Like, I feel over the last year and a half, as I've been considering who is God the Father as opposed to just Jesus, man, my concept of God has just gotten so much more big and so much more glorious. So anyways, hi, David. Kentucky Fireman says hi. Hi. I'm so glad you're here. Nam, hello. Ven Adhav, hello. Thanks for joining. All right, y'all. I need to jump off. I need to finish editing my book. I'm hoping to be done tonight. Crossing my fingers. So we'll see how this goes. Thank you so much for joining me. I am so grateful for your time. And I will see you tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. sharp, 9 a.m. Eastern, as we have our daily show for A Course in Miracles. I will talk to you all soon. Thank you.